Let's start with the JavaScript function today. Okay, so basically already we have discussed like function is a set of statement we will write and which help us to solve the specific problem. So every function will do some specific task. Okay, and the function can be repetitively used, right? So like if we create a function, we can use the function again and again. We don't need to write the duplicate key wherever the functionality is required or wherever the things has to get solved. Okay, so that we are going to check in the JavaScript function. Okay, so yeah, so function, so nothing like it's a small like structure of the function basically it's about. So already we know like function we think as of a human being, right? So human being, like let's suppose I have given here example as manager. So the function name is manager. Okay, the human being name is manager, and he has the head, he has the body, right? So in head he will take all the inputs and he will serve to the body. So whatever the implementation he has to do, whatever the task he has to do, that he will proceed in the body section. Okay, and whatever the information he has to collect from outside of the world, he will take in the head. Okay, so this is how the human being looks like and this is how the function looks like. Okay, so similar to this, we are at the right side, we are writing a function syntax, the creation of function syntax, where we can create a function using function keyword space name of the function, that is manager here, and then parameters like what on all information he can take. Can you go on the mute? Sounds are coming from your side. Okay, whenever you have to ask anything, just make on the sounds. Okay, okay. So yeah, so functions name, that is manager, and then parameters. So parameters is nothing but it's a input to the function. It's like a inside head. So any information, if someone want to give you that information, it will take, and based on that information, it will try to perform some operation or it will try to do some implementation. Okay, so open curly bracket and close bracket, curly bracket, in between whatever we write it executes, and last statement will be return data. So it's a return. So what this function has to return, if the function is not going to return anything, we no need to write this return statement. If the function has to return, means if the function is getting called by some other function, that time return is important. So that's why we write return space and one data. So whatever data, either number, either variables, anything you have to return, that too only one you can return. Okay, return statement only will be one. Okay, so next we'll go for different types of function in JavaScript. So now we are just going to see very small concepts, very like small little knowledge in function. So we are going to check with different types of function in brief. Later we will go and discuss in detail regarding all the three functions types. Okay, so first functions types are normal function. Normal function is nothing but the function created using function keyword having the name with open bracket, parameters, and then the body. Okay, so this is the function, normal function. Okay, so and this is the creation of function is also called function declaration. Okay, so whatever things will be there inside the curly bracket, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, I will try to execute once we will call. So only creating of the function is not enough, we have to call that function. So to call that function, we have to call with the name. So the function name here in the example we can see it's a add. So we are able to call add, and then we are passing. So function takes two input, like it has to take two input, which is a comma b, that is first input comma second input. So first input we are passing 3, second input we are passing 4. So a equal to 3, b equal to 4. So once we have called here the function, what happens, it will call this function, it will take the value 3 comma 4, and then it will go inside the curly bracket and the statement return a plus b. So that means 3 plus 4. So 3 plus 4 is nothing but 7. So it returns is nothing but wherever it has called. So a add it is called, right? So in place of this calling function, whatever we have called, that will replaced by return statement. So returning 3 plus 4, that is 7. So returning 7. So this will be replaced with 7. So result, we have created one variable called let result. So one variable as result to store the result of the function. Okay, whatever function is returning. So 7 is returned to the result, and next line we are printing 7. Okay, so this is all about normal function. Okay, next type is we have function expression. Function expression is nothing but, first you have to understand the expression. Expression is nothing but it's a combination of operator and operand. Okay, so it's like operand. Operand is nothing but it's a variable. All the variable names and all are operand, like A, B, C. Okay, these all are operand. Operators are nothing but it's a plus symbol, minus symbol, multiply symbol, divide symbol. So all are this operator. Okay, so how the expression created? Expression is a combination of, okay, expression is nothing but combination of operand and operator. That is called expression. Okay, so example as A equal to B plus C. This is one expression, right? This is one expression because we have operand A, comma B and C, and we have operator equals and plus. So this is our expression. Okay, so now if we see here in our function expression syntax, okay, so if you see second type of function, which is function expression. So function expression is the expression of expression can be assigned as a value function. So function assigned to the variable in an expression called as function expression. See, in place of a plus b, we are just creating a function and assigning to the variable add. So now it became function expression. So it's another way of creating a function. So we'll go in detail. What is the advantage of function expression? What is the disadvantage of normal function? Where we can use function expression? In what scenario we have to go for function expression? So all those things we'll see in the detail. But as of now, just we are going to check what is the types of the function, how the syntax is, how the function is getting created. Okay, so this is function expression. So I'll just give you some more example. So first we create a function. So we can create a function expression in two ways. Like first we create a function which is normal function. Okay, we'll write a comma b and we'll just return a plus b. Right? This is normal function, right? This is normal function. So now this normal function we have to convert it into function expression. So if you want to convert it into function expression, we have to just create a variable. As we told, we have to create a variable, and with that variable we have to just write function name. Okay, now this result became the function expression, because and here we are not calling the function, we are not writing like this. Okay, we are not writing like this. If you are writing like this, that means like we are calling this function, and whatever result will be there, that will be assigned to result. But no, we are directly taking the function name and we are passing to the result. Means this also becomes the function. Like if I just want to prove it, so I'll just log result. Okay, so once I print the result, this entire function will get printed. Okay, it's not like we are printing the executable function. So we are getting the entire function. See? Okay, first this we have to comment it. Okay, let's start. It's clear. See, we have entire function add. Okay, so entire function, normal function, is assigned to the result variable. Okay, this is nothing but function expression. Okay, function expression. This is the first way of creating function expression. Second way of creating function expression is directly writing variable, creating a variable and then assigning a function. So we'll remove this name, add. We'll just write function keyword without name. Okay, so a comma b, and then we will write return a plus b. Okay, so this is also a function expression, means there is no name for this function, and if the function does not have name is also called as anonymous function. Is also called as anonymous function. The function which does not have name is also called as anonymous function. Okay, it's called as anonymous function. So this function, you can see there is no name, only the function keyword without name. So this way also we can assign. So this has, so see, this function has two names, one is add and one is result. So two name this function has. We can call this function using add also, we can call this function using result as well. Okay, like this also we can call. Okay, so it has two names, but here the function has no name, so the name is res, so we can call it as res. Okay, this is the second way of calling function expression. Okay, so we will discuss in detail what is the advantage of function expression in further classes, but as you have to just understand what is the function expression basically. Okay, so let's next we'll go for third type of function. Okay, third type. So another way of creating a function is, first we see uh, normal function we saw, second we are seeing function expression, so here also same thing you can check here. Now third, what is there, more precise level of writing function. Now what we have done, we have removed this function as well. First what we did, first we wrote function keyword with name. Next what we did, next we removed the name and we have just assigned a value. Next what we are going to do, we are just going to create a variable. Okay, create a variable, and then instead of writing function keyword, we will just write open bracket close bracket a comma b, and whatever the name of the function keyword is there, that we will replace by equals and greater than. So it's called as arrow function. Okay, it's looking like arrow, right? So it's called as arrow function, and then same body is there. See, so this becomes arrow function. Okay, so this is the third type of function. Okay, third type of function. So first what we did, first we have written normal way function keyword with name of the function. Second, we removed the name of the function, we have just created the variable and assigned the function, so that is function expression. Got it? Function expression. Third, what we did, we more we are doing for shorthand property. So more, now we are what doing, we are removing this function also. Now if we remove this function, now what is left, only this much is left, right? So this much is left. Now that function is replaced with this, right? So it became arrow function. Okay, so this is arrow function. Okay, so three type of functions are there. Okay, so this much we have gone through with the function. Now next we will go for, so now in this scenario we have understood how the function is created, we have understood how the variable is created, what are the type of the data has been assigned to the variable, that small games we have studied. Now let's go for one problem solving, that is adding two number only, but with the help of multiple function and multiple scenario. Okay, so that will go. So we can check here. So see, client has given the software, like to the person, to one company, client has went and he has asked for a software where he will pass two value to the software, and the software has to return the result by adding it. Okay, so basically client will pass a plus b, means a comma b, two value, 5 plus 6, 5 comma 6. Now what the software has to do, software has to take both the input 5 comma 6 and it has to add and add and store the variable, store the value in some variable, and it has to store the result, send back to the client. Okay, so this is very small things, like it's like the addition of two number, but this addition of two number we are going to do in multiple way or multiple scenario. Okay, so just you have to understand the scenario first. Okay, so three way we are going to solve the problem, we are going to develop the software for this. Okay, so first way, let's suppose one company is there and client has came to the company and client is asking for the software which takes two input and which provides the output by adding the two number. Okay, so what happens first scenario, client has sent data to the manager. Okay, this is the data I'm giving to you. Then in that company, let's suppose we have only one person in that company, single person, that is a manager or CEO or owner. So he is only responsible for doing everything. Okay, so he is the only person to work for that company, he is the only person to organize or manage the company. He's a single employee, single person. So what he does, he will just take the input from the customer. Okay, so manager will take the input from the customer, that is whatever customer has sent. Now 5 6. Now manager what it will do, it will just write the statement, like by taking the input, manager will write the logic, business logic, like okay, what has to be done. So client has asked adding the two number, so manager will write the logic adding the two number, and that will get back to customer, again back to the customer. So it's like customer to manager, manager writing the application, and that application result will be sent back to the customer. Okay, so here if you see the scenario, we can see we have one manager to be created, right? We have one manager to be created, and the manager is getting called by customer, second point, right? Manager is getting called by customer. And one more thing, manager is writing some statement inside manager only, because manager also only write. So inside manager there is a business logic, and sending the result to the customer is nothing but console.log. Okay, sending the result to the customer is where console.log. So wherever you see console.log is written, that means we are sending the result to the customer. And wherever you see the manager, that means we have to create a function. So let's solve the problem with this scenario. Okay, so it's like customer to manager, manager to customer, direct interaction. Okay, there is no other person involved here. Okay, so let's get back to VS Code and let's start that scenario. So first we saw, like we have manager, right? We have manager to be created. So when you see the person, you have to create a manager. So just create a manager. So I'm just writing function manager. Okay, input 1 comma input 2. Okay, now what the manager has to do, manager has to write the application or business logic for the input taken from the customer. Okay, so manager will just create one more variable, that is C or out, and then manager has to, so I'll just write this way, and then manager has to add the input, right, and store to the out. So it's like out equals input 1 plus input 2, right? And then then what has to do manager, manager has to print the result to the customer. Immediately it has to print the result. It no need to send anyone. Okay, if we have to send to any other function, that means we are going to return, but here return is not required because manager immediately has to send the result, means send the result, show the result to the customer. So showing the result is nothing but it's a console.log. Okay, I'll just write the result is, okay, I will just write out. Okay, now this is the manager, based on the requirement manager has written, manager has created, and manager has written the logic. Now the manager has to call from the customer, right? So manager, let's create a customer. So sorry, let's call the manager. So manager, so this is like customer calling to the manager by passing the input. So manager will client will pass 5 6, right? Now it's like calling the manager by client or customer, right, with data passed. Okay, so we are passing the data 5 6. So this is nothing but it's a scenario of the result is 11. Okay, so here also we'll write one console for our convenience, console.log, and we will just write here, I'll just write the input received by client. Okay, that is int1, int2. Okay, so this first console is for printing the input received by client. Okay, so when client will call the manager, client will send the input. So 5 will store in input 1, 6 will store in input 2. Okay, so now we will get the proper output. So first we'll clear and then again we print. So see, input received by client is 5, 6, right? So manager has got the input from client, that is 5, 6. Now the result is 11, right? The result is 11. So it's like directly, this is the calling. So directly customer is calling the manager and manager is only doing everything and printing the result, right? So this is first scenario. Okay, so here I'll write one client calls manager with input and manager returns the result. Okay, so this is one scenario. So there is only one function involved, that is main manager. Now let's go for next scenario. Okay, so this is next scenario. So this time what happens in that company, two persons are there. One is manager, one more employee manager has hired. Now see, there is one customer, there is one manager, and there is one employee who is always be smiling, right? Because employee has to do the work. So employee, now employee has to write the logic. So what happens here? First customer will call the manager, right? So manager will call the employee. Then employee will write all the logic. So whatever implementation, like whatever addition, subtraction, and any implement logic is there, that has to be written inside employee, not in the manager. Right? Now employee will write the things and employee will only return to the customer. So here we have to create two person. One is manager, one is employee. So let's create it. So I'll just create a function. Okay, so I'll comment this out entirely. Okay, so let's first create a manager. Okay, which is IP1, IP2. Okay, so and let's create a function called employee. Okay, so employee also has one variable, like some input he has, right? Because every function has the input to take. So employee has in p1, in p2. Any name we can give. It's not like you have to give a specific INP and A, B, C, D also you can give. Whatever input you want, you can give. Name. Now two persons are there involved here, right? Previously only one person was there involved. Now two persons are there. So what is the scenario now? Scenario is manager is taking the input from the customer and then sending that same input to the employee by calling the employee. Okay, one more time I'm repeating. So basically manager is taking the input from the customer and then calling the employee. So let's first take the input from the customer to the manager. So let's first call the manager. Manager is getting called with 6, 7. Okay, so from here the execution starts. 6, 7. Now manager is taking the input from the customer. So here I'll write console.log the input received by customer to the manager are IP1, IP2. Okay, now we can see the manager takes the input from the customer, right? So this is manager taking the inputs from the customer. So here is calling the manager by client with data passed. Okay, data passed. So client is calling the manager by passing the input 6 comma 7. Now manager taking the input from the client and printing here just the input, it's printing like okay, I have received 6 comma 7. So here it should print 6 comma 7. Now next part, what is there? Manager has to call the employee, and whatever data manager has received from the customer, that manager has to pass to the employee. Okay, so next manager will call the employee. So let's call the employee. So how the client calling the manager, same way employee has to get called from manager. So employee, now manager has received the input 6 comma 7 in variable ip1, variable ip2. So these two variable only it will pass to employee. So ip1 comma ip2, because manager has these two variable to do some operation, and this variable having the data 5 6 comma 7. Now what happens? Now manager has done his job, right? Manager has done his job. Now employee taking the data from the manager. So employee has to provide, okay, I have received the data from the manager. So now we'll write and go to employee, and employee has received the same input which is coming from this variable to this variable, this variable to this variable. So employee has to write console dot log, and we'll write the input received by employee from manager. Okay, so that is inp1 comma inp2. Many person will get confused like what is ip1 and it's just a variable name. Either we can write abc, but here many people write ip1 and ip2 because here we are passing as ip1 and ip2, but it's not a problem because this ip1 and ip2 is only for manager, not for employee. Employee has another variable, that is inp1, inp2. So whatever we pass here ip1 by calling the employee, same it will go and take by input 1. ip2 will send to the input 2. So here input 1 will take the data as 6. So 6 will go to IP1, 7 will go to IP2. And same 6 and 7 will pass to employee. So employee IP1 will take 6 and employee IP2 will take 7. So okay, so now employee has taken the input. Now what employee has to do? Employee has to write the logic for that, and employee has to only show the result to the customer. Okay, so next here employee, what it will do? It will just print and show. So let's suppose employee has created one more variable to store the result. So I'll just write res inp1 plus inp2. Fine. And now employee has to show the result to the client, right? Employee does not have to return anything to the manager, right? Employee does not have to return anything to the manager. So what happens? No need to write any return statement for employee. Just write console.log and we'll write the result shown by employee to client. Okay, so we'll just write what is the variable employee has taken? res. So in res the data is there, right? So now it's done, right? It's done. So what happens? Client is calling manager by passing 6 comma 7. So manager is receiving in variable ip1, ip2, and then manager is confirming like okay, I have received the input. So it will print. Now manager is calling the employee by passing the same input. Then employee will receive the input and employee is confirming okay, I have received from manager. Okay, now employee what is doing? Employee is adding the two input, storing into one more variable, and that result it's trying to send it to the customer. So now let's clear it and let's check. So I'll do some more big and let's check. See, so first what happens? Input received by customer to manager. So first manager received 6 comma 7. Same way input received. Now manager is sending to employee. So employee is receiving from manager 6 and 7. Then result is shown by employee to client is 13, means 6 plus 7. So here if you see the difference, previously manager has to only write all the logic, right? This is all logic. But now this logic has been transferred to employee. Okay, so here it's like client calling manager, manager calling employee, and then employee is doing everything. Okay, so next scenario is, so I'll just write client calling manager, manager calling employee, and employee sending result to client. Okay, so this is second scenario. Okay, now next we'll go for third scenario. Okay, third scenario is nothing but this time third scenario is different. Third scenario, so third scenario, what is that? Manager is getting the input from the customer, manager is calling the employee, employee is writing the logic, and then this time employee is not showing result to the customer directly, because previous stage what happened, employee showing the result to the customer, but now what happens, employee has to return the output by writing the logic, the output back to the manager, means back to the same manager. Okay, so whatever here should be some return statement, right? Because employee has to return something to the manager, so employee will return the result to the manager, and manager will print the output. Okay, manager will show the output to the customer. It's like a indirect type of thing, means manager is asking employee to do, employee is doing some work, employee is showing to the manager, then manager is showing to the customer. Okay, so let's get back and solve it. So same scenario we're going to write. So first let's create a manager again. So I'll just write A comma B this time, okay? Otherwise you will not get confused every time. So what happens first? Manager has to receive input from the customer. So I'll just write same, okay? The input received by manager from client is A comma B, right? So this is input received from client by the manager, right? So manager received the input. Now let's call the manager here by passing 9 comma 6. Okay, any two input manager is passing. Now what happens? Manager has to call the employee by passing the data. So let's create the employee. Okay, so employee will take the data in some other variable. So I'll just write D comma F. Okay, that two variable employee is going to write. Okay, so employee is going to take the same data. Okay, take the same data, but before that manager has to call the employee, right? So manager is calling the employee, okay, by passing A comma B. Got it? Now employee will receive, so input received by employee from manager is A comma B. Now employee has received the input. Now employee, what it will do, it will just create a logic. So it will just write out equals D, sorry, here not A comma B, here it will be D comma F, because employee has variable called D comma F. So D plus F. Okay, now this time employee will not send direct result to the customer. Employee will do one thing, employee will return the result back to the manager. So I'll just write return OUT, because in out variable only the total sum is there, right? Total sum is there. So this out it will return. So once it returns, that means wherever it is getting called, so here it is getting called, right? So in place of this, it will replace with the out. So that data has to be stored by the manager some variable. So here also manager is creating the variable and storing. So whatever employee is getting called, when the employee will return something, that has to be stored to result. Now what happens? After manager taking the data from the employee, that result, manager has to show to the customer. So now next manager will show to the customer. Okay, so the result shown to customer by manager is result. Okay, we have to write a comma. Okay, now what happens? First, customer calling manager with inputs. Okay, here first here manager. So manager receiving the input, right? Here receiving the input from the customer, and then manager calling the employee. Now this input will go to employee. So employee will receive input from the manager. Employee will do the operations. Employee will return back the result back to the manager. So in place of this, out will be there. So out is nothing but it's a addition of two number, that is 9 and 6. So 9 and 6 addition will be returned in replaced with the employee calling, and that will be stored in the result. Now the same result will be shown to the customer by the manager. So now if you try to print it, I'll just clear it. Now see, the input received by the manager from client is 9, 6, right? The input received by employee from manager is 9, 6. It's like manager is passing to the employee. Now the result shown to the customer by a manager. Now manager is showing the result to the customer. Okay, so these are all the three scenarios we can solve addition of the two number. And in this three scenario, we have learned so many things. We have learned how to pass data from one function to another function, how to call the function, how to return data from the function. Okay, fine. How to create a variable and store the result, that also we have learned. So all the scenarios are different. We are able to learn the things. Okay. Client calling manager, manager calling employee, and employee sending result to manager, and final manager is sending result to customer. Okay, so this is the third scenario. So in this scenario we have learned so many things. All these three scenario has different way of features and mechanisms. Okay, for functions. So these are the basically functions. Okay, so one example, proper example I have sent you. So these are the examples which we can solve one problem with three ways. Okay, and we understood the variable creations, the calling of the functions from one function to another function, getting the data out of the function. So we have completed all the scenarios and we have completed the class today. Okay, so that's it for function. Next class we will be checking about operators. Okay, bye.